So my name is Glenn Gibson. I am a Professor of Microbiology at the University of Reading in the Department of Food and Nutritional Sciences. The gut microbiome is the collection of microbes which we have inside our gut or gastrointestinal tract. So this is the stomach, the small intestine and the large intestine, and the numbers and types of microbes in these different organs varies. We can improve our gut microbiome health by thinking about ingredients like probiotics, which are live microorganisms in the diet, which are beneficial for health. They've been around a long time in human civilization. If you think about these little fermented milk drinks, these are probiotics, as are yogurts. They can also be dried and put into powders, capsule tablets or sprays. To put it simply, probiotics are live microbes which are of benefit to host health, and that can be either human or animal. So I think a good probiotic would be species which belong to the groups Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium. I think to get good information on what to look for on a label, you need to be convinced of the safety of the microorganism, the numbers that are there, research which has been done to show that it can have an effect in vivo. But if people who are listening to this are interested in really what kind of criteria match up for probiotics, the ISAP website is a good resource for that. It even has an infographic suggesting what you should look for in a label. How will someone know a probiotic works? That's interesting, because if it's preventing disease, you probably won't, because you won't feel any different, as it were. On the contrary, in patient populations, what we could do then is look at symptomology. We can look at metabolites which are produced by the microbiome, including the probiotics, to see whether they're of benefit or not. And then there's a whole area of biomarkers of health. I guess one of the more traditional ones in the probiotic area has been blood lipids, because these are measurable. Certain blood lipids, like LDL cholesterol, are thought to predispose towards cardiovascular issues, as are triglycerides. And so looking at levels of these types of blood lipids is a very good biomarker approach. But these are all research tools. An individual person will only know if their symptoms increase. Probiotics have health benefits. These can be acute issues right through to chronic problems. Examples are improvements from irritable bowel syndrome, reducing hospital-acquired infections. And then on a more chronic basis, researchers have looked at long-term disorders like ulcerative colitis and even some types of digestive cancers. Probiotics are in the gut, so it makes sense that their attributes are directed towards gut or gastrointestinal issues, but they can also have effects outside of the gut through the products that they make. That is their functional premise, if you want. So for instance, cardiovascular issues, reduction of cholesterol is looked at very closely and has been for a long time in the probiotic field, principally through reducing blood lipids thought to be involved in cardiometabolic health. Also influencing inflammatory status and therefore markers of metabolic syndrome, including insulin resistance. And the whole area of cognitive is a relatively new one for this field, but now that psychologists and psychiatrists are interested in the area, we hope this will move speedily in the future. Some products have multiple strains, some have one and some have one or two, each to their own, as it were. And I think, again, it all comes back to the same thing to me, that whatever the science shows and whether the studies are done good is the real crux. We do lots of human studies here, but one that comes to mind is one that was relative to cardiovascular disorders, and this was with a probiotic called Lactobacillus plantarum, LPLDL. And what we did here was take a cohort of volunteers and we fed them the probiotic strain, the LPLDL, or a placebo, so that was a dummy version of it which was inactive. And we compared the two in terms of health biomarkers like blood lipids. And what we saw was very interesting in that Certain types of blood lipids like LDL and triglycerides were reduced when the probiotic was taken, and this was a really good result for us. And there was one reason for this, and that was the volunteers who were tested, they did not have enormously high levels of cholesterol to start with. And a lot of cholesterol probiotic studies have started with people who have very high levels to begin with. Also, interestingly for us, blood pressure was also reduced when this occurred. So with the probiotic, there were several different health angles which suggested that this particular strain might be of relevance to cardiovascular issues. Probiotics can improve cardiovascular health, but it's like anything, you need the correct type of probiotic. They don't do everything. For instance, you would not give any antibiotic for any infection. It has to deal with that particular issue. So there are probiotics in the research literature which have been researched for their ability to influence cardiovascular risk, principally through reducing blood lipids thought to be involved in cardiometabolic health. The future for probiotics, I hope, is more clarity over labelling and health claims. But in terms of the science, I think the big areas moving forward are the whole business of metabolic syndrome and risk of diabetes. The other big one is, of course, the whole business of cognitive function. And then there's the whole area of pro and prebiotics generally affecting gut welfare and health. So I think they have a hugely important role.